the Downtown Association does a trick-or-treat trail. We welcome trick-or-treaters. And the kids all come in costume. And the first year that I worked for this company and we did that, I thought, what kid's going to come in and want seeds? I mean, come on, they're going to want candy. Oh no. Oh no. They come in and just, again, there's all these tears that come in because they're like, there's no kale in here. Could I have kale? You go in the store and you tell the skeleton that the Vulcan said you could have kale.
Hi, Ellyn. Welcome. Hi. We're so happy to be able to sit down and talk to you today.
Welcome to the Seed Bank. We're happy to have you visit.
I guess to get started, first question, what defines an heirloom seed?
Yes. First of all, it has to be open pollinated. Open pollinated is either insect or wind, or the plant is self-pollinated. It's not a hybrid. If you save the seeds from a hybrid plant and you plant them, you're going to get a plant. You're not going to get the one you think you're planting because it's a hybrid. It's a combination of two different parent plants. When you plant an heirloom variety, assuming you follow the proper isolation requirements for that variety, you're going to get the exact same thing. The difference is that it will become more acclimated to your garden, and therefore every year it will grow better, the flavor will be better, it'll produce more, it'll be a better version of itself every year that you save the seeds. I call it Darwinism in your backyard. It doesn't happen in one season. It's multiple seasons. So I have a garden that's a little bit on the cooler side, and so I can't grow really big tomatoes, but I try to grow a big tomato, and I put in 5 plants, and one of them particularly does well. So those are the seeds I'm going to save. And the next year I'll plant those seeds from that one plant because it did the best. So I've selected for the best. And then I plant 5 and I pick the one that does the best and I save those seeds and I continue to do it. So every year it's going to get a little bit better. It should be at least a variety that's been around for at least 50 years. Some people say 100 years. There's some flexibility. For some people, other people, it has to be exactly 100 years. But 50 years is the lowest common denominator. The green zebra is a hybrid that has been stabilized. It was stabilized in 72, 74, and it is now open pollinated. So although it was originally a hybrid, it's been a stabilized variety for 50 years. So therefore, some people consider it an heirloom and some do not. So that's that sort of gray zone. Generally speaking, though, they all have a really interesting story behind them, or a reason that this variety was saved and passed down generation to generation. So the straightest bean for canning, because you can fit more in a can if they're all straight.
Yeah.
The melon that once you harvest it will last the longest. The squashes that will take the most amount of heavy frost or can tolerate a light snow. So they save those seeds and pass them on. If you ever have the opportunity to be in the store when the owner, Jer Gettle, is here, he can walk along the shelves and tell you the story of every single variety. Wow. And most of the time he can tell you where we got it from, who brought us the seeds originally. He sends staff out around the world looking for varieties. People travel to Peru, or they travel to Mexico, or they wherever, and collecting varieties from different places, always collecting them ethically. It's very important that I say that, ethically collected. We don't sneak in the night and steal anything. I went to India, Sri Lanka, and a couple days in China to, look for varieties that we didn't have. So there's a story behind all of them, and he knows all of those stories. It is hard to narrow it down in a lot of ways, but there are a few things that I want in my garden every single year. One of them is lettuce leaf basil. It has a classic basil taste, but what I really love about it is the leaves are huge. And I actually will put basil in a sandwich.
Okay. So
I use this as if it was lettuce. So that's why I like this variety the best. It's really good for pesto and things too, but I just like the huge leaves. I just stick them, and also use them for rolls. I put in rice and some vegetables in it to make fresh vegetable rolls.
Interesting.
That looks so cool.
Yeah, it looks good. I think we're going to try it next year.
Its leaf is this big, and you put a little bit of some rice and some thinly sliced sweet peppers and just roll it up.
If someone comes in and asks, why should I choose heirloom versus conventional or hybrid, what's sort of the top reasons you would say?
Well, number one, I think they taste better.
No.
And part of the reason that they taste better is that they are not modified for shipping. In the summertime, shipping tomatoes in that heat, they're going to go bad really fast. So they need something that can stand the shipping and take the weight as they're all piled in these huge, So that means a thicker skin, which means when we eat it, it doesn't taste as good. So for me personally, I find the flavor is far better than any hybrid variety of any similar vegetable that I've had. Kind of a disadvantage to heirlooms is a hybrid will grow in the lowest common denominator garden. So they have to have attributes that allow them to grow in everybody's garden. Like they don't want to have to say, you have to have this or you can't have that. They want it to grow everywhere. It's how they sell the most number of seeds. And in and of themselves, hybrids are fine. And some of them are really important for people who live in really selectively difficult places to garden. A hybrid often will be the best thing for their garden. It's very rare that happens from our perspective as an heirloom seed company, but periodically it does happen. Heirloom varieties have a little bit smaller niche that they need to grow in for them to be the most successful. You can push those boundaries a little bit, especially if you're an experienced gardener, but that for some people makes them a little bit more of a challenge, a little bit more frightening to try. There's also a misconception that heirloom varieties, they don't last. Well, they don't last in that if you pick the tomato in the garden today, you should eat it today, not think you're going to pick it and save it for 5 days, because they haven't been adapted to sitting on a shelf or your counter for days and days like the hard-skinned ones we get in the grocery store. Those were picked, a week ago.
Well, that's fascinating because I never think about that as like, ultimately it's just a trade-off between traits. And so the standard supermarket produce you're going to buy, the trait that they're always going to select for is how long can it last? How easy is it to transport? How can it fit within the right packaging in the right spaces? And the last consideration is going to be flavor, because that's not how people shop in a supermarket.
Right. Shop your eyes first. And from a grocer's perspective, I need all of these cucumbers to line up evenly. I need all of my cucumbers to fit in this space right here. And heirlooms do what they want. You think you have a cucumber that's all going to be straight, and then you get one that's kind of wonky. But the thing is, that wonky one's going to taste amazing.
Yeah, the wonkiest ones always taste.
They always do. My favorite cucumber is the dragon's egg. What I like about this is the flavor is really good. I mean, it tastes, classic cucumber, but the skin is white, and I find that the white skinned cucumbers very rarely become bitter. And I don't peel cucumbers when I eat them. Yeah. Most of the time, they don't make it to the house. But it's juicy, and the flavor is really nice, and it's crisp. And I've never had one go bitter in the skin. So
it's hard to say, but what's the size of one?
They're actually about like this.
Like this? Mm-hmm. Wow.
And they're kind of rounded.
Okay.
As you would imagine a dragon's egg would be, the Game of Thrones notwithstanding. And then...
Classic.
Yeah.
Size.
I know. Everyone, if you say Game of Thrones dragons, everybody knows what that says.
What kind of advice do you have for someone who's like, ooh, I want to try seed saving, but it's very big and very complicated and I don't want to mess things up? What do you recommend people start with? Saving
seeds with heirlooms can be a challenge because they're open pollinated, which means if you're doing like melons or squash, they're pollinated by bees and other flying insects. And if you plant 2, 3, 4 different kinds of melons, your chance of cross-pollination is very, very high. And if you save the seeds from one of those melons, you won't know that it cross-pollinates until you save the seeds and plant them in the next generation. Then you'll know. Is it definitely going to cross-pollinate? It's not 100%. It's highly likely that they'll cross-pollinate. Tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, those are self-pollinated. So your chances of them cross-pollinating are much, much lower. And you can usually get away with no isolation requirements with tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. Things like beans and peas, they self-pollinate before the flower is fully open. So especially if you're new to seed saving, that's the way to go. Beans and peas are easy because the chance of cross-pollination is almost zero. And it's easy to, a bean plant, you leave the pods on the plant until they're fully dry. Then you take them off the plant. You set them out to air cure in some place that's warm but not in the sun. I like to use old window screens.
So even after it dried on a pod, we have to put them to dry
Yeah,
more?
another couple of weeks just to make sure they're completely dried.
Okay.
And then what you can do is you take the thickest pod you can find and give it a twist. If it breaks, it's ready. If it bends, it's not. And the reason you take the thickest one is because that's going to take the longest to fully dry, and everything else is going to have dried already. Same thing if you're doing squash seeds. That's how you test if they're ready. You take the thickest squash seed and you snap it. If it snaps, they're all ready. If it bends, you leave them for a little bit longer. I know this sounds like a sales ploy, but I highly recommend getting a book on how to save seeds, because before you select the varieties that you're going to plant, you need to know what the isolation requirements are. And actually, this is my favorite seed saving book. I love this book so much. And the reason I love it is if you're an experienced gardener, you can use this and you have all the information you need, and it goes into the amount of detail that you need. If you're a brand new gardener, it's super simple and basic. So if you want to grow corn and save the seeds, everything you need to know is just clearly set out here, your isolation requirements, how to harvest, how to properly store the seed. Everything you need is right here and easy, and the charts are easy to read. So if you're a brand new gardener, you'll know right away, oh, this has certain isolation requirements that I'm not ready to do yet. Okay, I'm not going to save corn. This is my favorite squash, and oddly enough, it's not one that you eat the meat for particularly. I like this one because it is, the seeds are hulless. There's no seed casing on them, so you can just eat them straight. You don't have to, to peel them. And the flavor, I had never had a raw pumpkin seed before until I grew this for the first time, and so I'm just gonna, it's such a different flavor, and I actually like it better than when they're roasted. There's nothing wrong with the meat. You can certainly eat the meat, and I do, but why use it in a recipe that has a high spice content, like a curry?
When we buy seeds, what's the best environment to save them?
The best thing for seeds is cool, dry, and dark.
Cool, dry, dark.
So 35 to 45 degrees is the best temperature range for long-term storage, and less than 40% humidity. A lot of people say, oh, put them on the refrigerator. We say no. Unless you live in New Mexico, you don't need them in the refrigerator. The temperature's good in a refrigerator, right? It can be, 33, 34 degrees. So your temperature's good, but your humidity's way too high. You can counteract that by vacuum sealing them and putting them in, but you really only need to do that if you are trying to save like really long time. You want to save them for 10 or 15 years, or you live in a very, very hot environment. So don't come here, buy seeds and stick them on the dashboard of your car. Put them somewhere cool in your vehicle. And it sounds really excessive, be really careful, but the more you protect the seed's longevity, the longer they'll last for you, and you'll have a higher germination rate. What happens is, like at the end of the year, people think that's an expiration date. It's not an expiration date, it's a sell-by date. What happens as the seeds age is their germination rate starts to drop. So you start with a 90% germination, 5 years later, maybe it's 60%.
But those are still plantable seeds.
They're still plantable, you just plant more. If you need 5 plants and the seeds are 8 years old, you plant 10 seeds. Some things, the germination rate drops much faster. Basil, parsnips, and onions really should be replaced every 2 years. Wildflowers, 1 to 2 years, because their germination rate drops dramatically. Doesn't make them bad, you just have to plant maybe 4 or 5 times as many. So I always tell people that front closet where you put your clothes, your coats, in the bottom, in the back corner, in a mason jar with a couple tablespoons of raw rice.
Okay.
Rice will absorb any moisture. Low heat rises. It's in the back. It's dark. You only open that closet a few times. You're not opening it every day. It's the storage closet, but it's at the front of the house. There's almost never a heat vent near it, and it's never near the kitchen.
So rice is that's a good tip.
So
no it works
air...
for your phone.
Yeah.
It works for your seeds.
So no air circulation as well?
Not necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
When people say, what's your number one favorite thing in the whole collection? And then when I think back to everything that we've ever carried the whole time I've worked here, this is my favorite. This tomato, if you take all the attributes of tomatoes, you got the acidity of the reds and the sweetness of the stripes and a little bit of tartness that you get in the purples and the nice round red you get on, like the Best Buy or Best Boy or something like that. They're all these things you want in a tomato, and in the middle, there's a little circle there where they all overlap, and that's in the middle. They're about this big. They're perfectly round. The skin is absolutely even color. There's not a whole lot of water, so it makes a really good paste tomato. It's not super seedy, so when you slice it, it holds its shape really well. You can grill it. It's great in the sandwich. The flavor is amazing. It's very productive. It does very well in a cool garden, which is what I have, but it also does well in a traditionally hot, tomato garden. So it's that right in the middle of everything. This became my favorite tomato 3 years ago. Before that, it was the pineapple. And then I tasted this one and I was like, pineapple's out of here.
And when someone's looking like, what should I be planting in my garden? What's the criteria you look at to be like, here are the things you need to be taking into consideration if you're choosing this seed versus that seed, this variety versus that?
The first thing we need to know is where they're gardening, and we don't use the zones because they're not really accurate anymore. They haven't been updated in a long time, and climate change makes a huge difference. So we need to know where they're actually gardening, and then we'll ask questions about, some people are able to answer the questions on a more scientific basis, like, if they know what's your first last frost date, they may know that approximately. Other people, we have to sort of guide them through, when do you take out your sweatshirts? When do you start wearing, when do you stop wearing sweatshirts? Because that gives us a really good sort of balance for where it is. When you know how much sun they have, whether it's direct sun or filtered sun, whether they're planting in the ground or in containers, because all of those affect the variety that we help them select. And then also, what do they want to do? So are they planting because they just want to be able to snack on some tomatoes in the garden? That's completely different than I'm going to make pasta sauce for the year. That's a totally different type of plant, different setup. Do you want to have like greens and things where you can just pick things quickly and eat, or are you looking for things you can cook, like squashes? So, and some people get intimidated by what we try not to make it a barrage of questions, but it really is, because if I don't have a really good understanding of what you're gardening in and why you're gardening, what you want to do with it, I can't really help you select. And we've had a few people who refuse to tell me where they live, and they just want me to tell them what to grow. And I like Tennessee, New Mexico, Paris. I mean, they're all different, and I can't help you if I don't know. And also we ask them, do your neighbors garden? And if they do, what are they growing? Do you see them? Are they growing really big tomatoes? Do you know if they've grown hot peppers? That tells me a huge amount about if they can grow big tomatoes and hot peppers, I know what kind of growing environment they have, what things will work.
Oh, that's so smart. You just cheat off of your neighbors.
Yes, because if they're successful, Also, my friend lives in New York and I don't want to get seeds for them as a gift. Okay. Have you been to their garden? Yes. Do they grow big tomatoes? Do they grow hot peppers? Oh, yes. Then you can plant everything we've got. And they look at me like I'm a nutcase. I'm like, no, seriously.
That's good.
This is one thing that I think every single garden anywhere should be required by law to have in their garden, but that's just me. I'm a little weird. That doesn't go there. Nasturtiums. They are so not fussy. Yeah. They'll grow in almost any kind of soil. I've grown them in massive quantities with only about 2 hours of morning sun. They don't care if they're in full sun or partial sun. They can get watered really well, or they can get watered, they don't care. The leaves are edible, the flowers are edible, the pollinators love them. There's a beautiful pop of color. They have a shallow root system, so that if they've spread somewhere where you don't want them, they're super easy to pull up. And they drop seed everywhere, and you just have this massive, beautiful growth. You can use them as a ground cover. And this is my absolute favorite nasturtium variety. So the Alaska Red Shades, that red is really vivid. I love the fact that the leaves are variegated, so if you're using it in a salad or a roll, you have that visual impact. Absolutely love, love, love nasturtiums. We love nasturtiums so much that I created a holiday for them.
Oh,
June 1st, here in the store, we celebrate as Nasturtium Day. And we have a little pack of recipe cards and things you can do for nasturtium. We have a nasturtium pesto recipe in there. And then my absolute most favorite appetizer to bring, you go to a party and they're like, oh, can you bring a little something? Okay. I go out and I pick my nasturtiums, pull out the pollen in the middle because that's bitter. And I stuff it with a little bit of soft cheese, maybe a goat cheese. Wow. And I put that on a platter. And they're like, ah! And it tastes amazing, but the visual impact is incredible.
Yeah. I love your store. But when you open again and I came inside and I find all of this, I was amazed. Like, but this is the paradise of heirloom varieties. And not only that, but I saw all the books you have. They're all like related to the same way of thinking, the same philosophy. For me, it's like a kind of permaculture paradise here, and I love coming here. It's just it's Disneyland for me.
He's a big fan.
Well, we love hearing that. We want this to be a place where the really experienced gardener can come and get really advanced information, and the brand new gardener can come, and we want both of them to walk out the door and feel really successful, but also feel like if they have any questions at all, they can call us, they can email us. If we don't have the answer, we'll look it up, we'll find it. I have a whole research library up there on the shelf. There's actually all my own personal books that customers are welcome to use and read through and take pictures of pages if they need to. My goal is that you walk out the door thinking, I can do this. When you walked in the door going, I don't know about this. This is overwhelming. So we try to make it as easy to understand as possible.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. We love sharing all the goofy things we do.
Or like I think the carrots were very small, and with the 1,000 years of selection, they get bigger and bigger. The color changed.
The color changed, exactly.
It was orange, yeah, as well.
It was not orange.
What?
Yeah.
Carrots
Carrots were
weren't
originally white.
Oh,
Yeah.
feel betrayed.